It's working. And it looks like we have everybody.
Okay, and I've got 6:30, so okay with you, Deb, to start? Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, welcome to everybody here and watching. Thank you for being with us tonight. I don't have any opening comments, and so Jamie, I will turn it over to you.
All right. I have a couple. I'll do, yeah, I have a couple. I'll just jump around through right now. One I wanted to talk about quickly is summer school, hopefully fairly quickly. So summer school, as you know, we have a lot of different summer programs here in the school district. We have some at the primary elementary level, some at the middle school, some at the academy. We have, we started those choice camp summer schools last summer. We just have a variety of different summer school opportunities. And usually in the summer, our campuses are bustling with people. And while we're on summer vacation, if you go through the buildings, it doesn't always look like we're on summer vacation because we have students and a lot of staff still here. But I wanted to point out this summer will look a little bit different because we have so much capital project happening. All summer school programming will occur at the academy this year. The primary elementary school will really be off limits because of all the capital project work. And the same goes for the middle school. A lot of substantial amount of work happening there too, so they won't really be able to access that. So right now we're working with our leadership team to look into each of the different summer school offering programs that we have and what their specific needs are. And we'll be communicating those specific needs to Mike McLean and his crew, and we'll be bringing up some of the smaller furniture for some of those younger programs. And so everything will be up there. The food service, all transportation will go to one place. So in some ways, you know, it's a pretty efficient way to operate a summer program because it's all right there in one hub. But we'll be pinched for space a bit. We think we're going to be able to have certain programs in certain areas, certain wings. So it'll be kind of isolated to that program in that wing or that area. And so, you know, full confidence we'll be able to pull it off, but it just will look different this year. And I wanted to make everybody aware of that and making sure families are aware of that as well. I believe we actually have another meeting set up this week to continue to explore summer programming and all the needs up there. The one other piece of that I would point out is some of you may remember that our traditional academy level summer school, the credit recovery summer school, we do in conjunction with Victor, Bloomfield, and Honeoye. And typically either Canandaigua hosts or Victor hosts that summer school program. This coming summer is Canandaigua's turn to host. Of course, you know, as timing should work out. We've checked with Victor to see if they would be willing to host, but they have some things where they're not able to either. And so this summer, that summer school program will actually be hosted at Flint Bosse's, the Wayne Finger Lakes Bosse Center between here and Geneva, right on 5 and 20. And so that program will be there. It's a little different, but we're thankful Wayne Finger Lakes is willing to host us and we can run it through there because we need the added space because everything's running at the academy. But I just wanted to make you all aware of that. And then the pool, the gymnasiums, you know, there is work happening in those spaces, in the pool, in the gymnasium, in the field house. And we have a lot of programs, as you know, not just summer school programs, but athletic programs. And so we think we'll be okay and we'll be able to keep those programmings running as normal, but there may be some times where those spaces are a little bit more limited than normal. As we put new bleachers in, or as we work on those, the block glass in the field house that needs to be replaced, or the bleachers in the pool area, there'll just be some stuff happening. And so there'll be a little bit of inconvenience, but I think we can navigate it well and it'll be as painless as possible. But I think it's important for people to be aware. That's one piece. The other piece I want to talk about is, and I'm not sure if Nate got a heads up about the Academic Challenge Bowl in the middle school. Did you get a heads up about that, Nate? Because I don't want to steal your thunder if you did. Okay. So we have, as you know, a group of students that participate in the Academic Challenge Bowl. They won their division. Our middle school team won their division this year and are going on to the championships. So they wanted us to share that information with the board, and I shared it. So we're really proud of our students and how well they perform in that group. And the last thing, I have two more things. I'll try to make them relatively brief. Is I want to talk about a path forward with our flooring in relation to the capital project. As you know, In the classrooms, we've put down a new flooring, and it's been a little bit of work to get that floor to reflect what we wanted it or thought it should look like. It is a rubberized floor, which is kind of a common theme you're seeing in schools now. One of the benefits of a rubberized floor is it doesn't necessarily take that yearly summer maintenance in terms of buffing it and sealing it. And so a rubber floor doesn't typically need a sealer. And so we've worked with the manufacturing company around 3 basic options for this floor. And we've tested all 3 options. And so far we're pleased with all 3. We still need to do a little more testing with one of the options. But the flooring company indicated that most schools with a rubber flooring in our area of the nation, because of winter, because of cold, because of salt being brought in the winter, that they oftentimes do have to buff those floors out and seal them. It's just a product of where we live in an environment. And so Mike McLean and his crew did take a couple floors and buff them and sealed them, one with a semi-gloss and one with a gloss finish, and they look fantastic. The feedback, and they look beautiful, and they're holding up. You see, a rubber floor has pores in it. And in essence, over time, when you buff the floor, those pores are agitated and begin to seal up. And so the manufacturing company indicates that after about 10 times buffing the floor, those pores should be pretty much completely sealed up, so it wouldn't retain dirt. And that's what we were seeing initially, is it was retaining dirt, and it had even though it was clean, it had a dirty look to it. And we, certainly don't want that. And so Mike McLean and his crew have gone in and gone into one room and buffed that floor 10 times. It's almost a day process to do that, because that usually would happen over the course of 10 years, not in one day. And it looks nice, but we don't have a classroom in there yet. It's a empty swing space. People will move into it as they redo other rooms. And at this very moment, because of the swing space we're at, it's empty. But he's going to try that with a group of 4 rooms that teachers will be moving into in the next week or two. That 10 buff process to see if it sealed the pores and it resists the dirt retention. But we feel like we have a really strong path forward with the product that's down. And all 3 rooms at this point look really great. And I think it's something now the district is satisfied with. But I just wanted to mention that to you because I've been keeping you updated, and it's something many of you ask about often. And so those are those pieces. Before I do my last piece, are there any questions about any of those? I'm seeing no's. Okay. My last piece, but certainly not least, is you'll see Stephanie Yale has joined us. And I was speaking with her the other day during agenda setting, and she said, I can't wait to see you all at the board meeting so I can say goodbye. And I said, well, we're in Zoom, but why don't you join us? And that way I can thank you, and we can thank you for your many years of service to the Canandaigua City School District, whether it's as a teacher in the classroom or as an administrator leading such an important department for us. We're appreciative of all you've done for our district. You've always, and it's been clear, you love our students, and you take their programming and the services that they receive with the utmost of importance, and we appreciate that about you. We'll miss you, and we wish you the very best of luck in your new endeavors in Rochester, and hopefully you'll stay in touch and keep us updated. But Steph, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say a few words.
Thank you. I do. That was wonderful, Jamie, and I promised myself I wasn't going to cry, so I will try my best. When asked to identify the accomplishment that I'm most proud of in my career so far, it's easy to speak of a creation of our Friends program at the primary elementary school here in Canandaigua. We have a team of professionals who've promoted functional, realistic, and inclusive education for neurodiverse students, Friends. This team is dedicated to graduating Braves who use multiple modes of communication to demonstrate what they know and are able to do. I would have not had the ability to have hired for, develop, and lead this team without the support of the Board of Education. Your beliefs have provided access to all of our students. Thank you for supporting this vision and my tenure in the district.
Thanks, Steph. You kept it together.
Yep.
And that's just before Oh, go ahead, Jeannie. I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just thank you for everything. We've just loved having you be part of our school family, and we wish you all the best in your next home.
And I think we could all hear it in Stephanie's voice, how much she cares about our students in this district. And that's always been evident. So thank you. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Nate, you're up. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good evening, everybody. There's not really much going on other than sports right now. I think everybody's just kind of waiting for spring break to roll around. Everybody's ready for a break. But let's see. Boys lacrosse had a game on Saturday and they beat Geneva. I think the final score was 11-2. And then I just checked Twitter and the girls are up 8-3 at the half on Mercy. That was about a half an hour ago, so they're probably wrapping up now. I think golf also has a match tonight. Couldn't tell you how that's going. Yeah, I think tennis was supposed to have their first match last week, but it got canceled because of the snow that we had, which was outrageous. Yeah, I think that's just about it. Everybody's pretty much just ready for break at school, so.
Well, we hope you have a great one.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Thanks for reporting out. Appreciate it. And you're welcome to stay or go, whatever works best for you.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see. We have 2 sets of minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Michelle and Beth, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And Matt, the budget presentation, please.
Good evening, everybody. Pull this up. All right, so when we last left off at the last board meeting, we were discussing different levels of the tax levy, and we were bringing you the final budget for adoption tonight. And I wanted to go through some of the details, refresh some of the information from the last meeting, and give you some additional information. So we'll start with looking at the revenues and state aid, working through into the expense side of the budget, looking at additional details of the capital outlay project, estimated tax bill, and then the next steps from here. So the state aid update, we went over the top part of the last meeting. Our foundation is to be fully funded according to the state by 23-24. And so our foundation aid increase this year is $579,465. And we're still currently underfunded by $266,953. The way the state was giving the state aid this year is you either received half of what you were underfunded or a 3% increase, whichever was greater. We're getting closer in our gap of where we're underfunded. So what happened with us this year is we received the 3% increase. That was larger than the 50% of underfunding. So we're still underfunded. So next year we would anticipate in the current law to be move up to fully funded. And then we'll see when the state meets next year as to whether they're going to do another increase beyond that, similar to this year or not. But we do have a little bit of a gap still remaining in the formula. There's a couple potential legislative changes. We're anticipating that the state, when they adopt the budget, the state's budget, that there will be electric buses included in their in that budget. And what that will be is it looks to be by 2027, all new buses purchased by school districts will need to be electric. And by 2035, your entire fleet must be electric. So there would be no remaining diesel or gasoline powered vehicles. We don't have a lot of details into that as to the funding sources of those, or whether it's realistic that those vehicles could be made, at the needs that the state that all the schools in the state would need. So those details still need to be worked out. And also what funding would be for transitioning our facilities from diesel to electric. What we do know right now is that the electric buses are almost 4 times the cost of a current diesel bus. And so, we do need to learn more and if this does get passed, as to how the financing works and how that process would work. The other item that's a potential change in the budget for the state is increasing capital outlay projects. As you're all aware, each year we do a $100,000 capital outlay project, and it's included within our budget. We do the work within 1 year, and then the following year we receive our state aid on it, so about 73.2%. The state is considering increasing that to $250,000. We're not going to, even if the state approves that, we're not making any changes to this year's budget to address that. That would be something we would look at in the 23-24 budget as to, if that's something we want to proceed with or stay with a $100,000 project or assess our situation at that time. So those are just a couple items that may be passing that you may be seeing in the news and that you may get questions on. On the revenue side of the budget, we have, we're increasing about $3 million. The largest area of increase is the property taxes. And when you combine that with the pilots and the penalties on the taxes, just over a $1.5 million increase. The pilots are decreasing slightly this year from the prior year. And this is a presentation that shows us going to the tax cap. State aid. In the previous slide, I showed that we were in our foundation aid increase. When you take our foundation aid increase and combine that with some of our expense-driven aids that are decreasing, our state aid is only increasing by about $360,000, excluding building aid. The building aid, you're going to notice in line 3 here, this is where we're seeing a large increase, a projected increase of $1,160,000. In the last meeting, we had a slide and we discussed in depth about how the current asset preservation project is starting to hit our budget for the first time this year. And so what we're going to see is a large increase of about $1,160,000 in building aid for next year. And we're also going to see an increase of about $1,165,000 in our debt service payments. So those are going to offset each other, but they're both going to increase on both the appropriation and revenue side. And then Medicaid, we're projecting the same amount of money and a small change to the miscellaneous revenues. So overall, the budget would increase from $78,419,000 this year to $81,442,684 for next year. So about on the revenue side, so about a $3,022,000 increase. And that would just be the revenue side of the budget. We show each year the tax levy history. So from 2012-13, when the tax cap was first implemented through today. And as you'll notice, in each year we've been at or below the tax cap. We've never exceeded it. This year we're recommending to go out at the tax cap of 3.19%. And this would need a 50% plus 1 to pass the budget. On the expense side, we're showing an increase, in the revenue side of we saw an increase of just over $3 million. On the expense side, we're showing an increase of about $3,918,000. So there's a gap in the amount of our appropriations are increasing compared to the amount of our revenues increasing. You'll see the largest area of increase is a program, and that really is where we would typically see this. That's the largest part of our budget. It includes all of our teaching staff, anything the students would see on a daily basis as far as their desks and computers and those types of things, and transportation. And so that's all included in there. And the other area we're seeing the large increases is on the capital side. And that's really due to the largest part is due to that, the building project coming onto into the budget. So a total increase of $3,918,000. You'll see down at the bottom the percentage for each component. So the program is still the largest at about 77%. You'll notice that percentage is decreasing, and that's simply because of that large increase on the debt service side for the capital. Staffing additions, these still remain the same from the prior meeting. We're adding a 0.5 English language learner teacher to the academy due to needs of students and enrollment. We're adding 2 elementary teachers to the primary elementary school, again, due to enrollment. 1 bus driver trainee. In our analysis, we realized that we're understaffed compared to other schools our size with our number of buses and miles traveled in that department. And so we've determined that we need to add a position there. We also are struggling like everybody else with filling driver positions and subs and those types of things. And so adding a bus driver trainer will help us with those areas. And we're reducing a 0.85 FTE for a teacher of the deaf, a district-wide position, and that's due to attrition. In this budget, again, we discussed earlier the $100,000 capital outlay projects. This year's project we're proposing would be at the academy. It'll be in the science room, replacing fume hoods, chemical cabinets, finishes, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So we'd be working on those science rooms, and the estimated state aid is 73.2% of the total cost, which would be received the following year. So our current budget status, appropriations of $83,248,000. Tax levy at 3.19% increase of $49,900,441. And then all other revenues that we have budgeted are $31,542,243. That leaves a remaining gap between the revenues and our appropriations of just over $1.8 million. So to balance that budget, we're planning on appropriating reserves and fund balance. The largest reserve that we'll appropriate will be the Employees Retirement System Reserve, and we'll be moving that from currently we're at about $317,000 in this current budget back to $1 million, which is where we were before in years prior. We'll appropriate the Workers' Compensation Reserve of $330,000, which is the total cost of workers' comp. For next year, unemployment insurance. Last year, you may remember that we were at $100,000 for unemployment insurance reserve appropriated, as we weren't sure what the expenses would be. We were seeing, very large numbers at one point through COVID. That has gone back to normal, and so we're back to the $20,000 budget area. And then we're also planning on using $100,000 from our employee benefits accrued liability reserve and our tax cert reserve to balance the budget. And then the current year, we have zero appropriated fund balance, and we're moving that back up to about $256,000. Estimated tax bill, and as I go through this, remember that all we're doing when we look at the tax rate for the projection is we're taking our current tax rate and increasing it by the percentage of the tax levy increase. So we're taking $18.17 and increasing it by 3.19%. What we know is, and that's a very conservative number, what we know is that there's growth in assessments throughout the district, and that will cause that number to be lower as a true tax value overall. But it's a very conservative number to show really what would be at the highest if everything stayed the same. What we also know this year is that property values are raising incredibly fast, and that municipalities are not going to be at 100% equalization rate. So even though the district, we might say, be advertising the tax rate of per thousand of 1875, even if it came in at 1875, some could be a bad number, some could be a higher if they had a lower equalization rate, meaning that their house was not considered to be fully assessed. So with that, comparing where we were last year at this time and on the left-hand column to where we currently are in the middle column to what we're projecting for next year with the conservative tax rate. So last year when we presented the budget, we estimated a tax rate of $19.25 per thousand. And that the tax bill after STAR would be about $2,327.50. The actual tax rates when we received the levies, the full levies and equalization rates in August, we set the tax rate at, the tax rate would say is $18.17, so significantly lower than what we had projected, and that's simply because of the growth, in the value of property and the reassessments that occurred last year. And so that $150,000 home after STAR, the actual tax bill was $2,165.50. And then in our projection for next year, $150,000 assessed value at 1875 with a $560 star exemption. The estimated would be $2,252.50. So an annual change of $87, an increase, and a monthly change of $7.25. Again, star is estimated. We don't have an actual number as of yet, but that is a fairly accurate number, that $560. So as we just talked about, the difference between what we project and what the actual rate ends up coming in, you can see in 2021, the gray is 1918. That's what we projected during this time. 1893 is what the actual tax rate was. We just went through 21, 22 of 1925 is what we projected, and it came in at 1817. And so this year we're projecting 1875. We expect that number to come in lower, but the advertised rate that we'll use for our presentations and our documents will be the 1875. So, obviously, we need to look at, multi-year budgeting. State aid, is something that we're keeping a close eye on. We've never really had projections in multiple years before because the foundation aid formula while it was running was never used. So the foundation aid formula being used, what we don't know, because we've never been there as a state, is what happens when that foundation aid is fully funded. Is that number locked in? Is there's a growth factor to it? Those are areas that we don't know, and how that affects, how that will affect us in the long term. Inflation is something that we're looking at, very closely. We're seeing, a 4.7% inflation rate for a year prior. And, now we're looking at a 7 to 8% inflation rate in current times. And so when we have a tax cap limit of, 2%, and then it's calculated at 3.19%, and and foundation aid increasing at 3%. Those are our two revenue sources. They're just increasing at 3 and 3.19%. When we're seeing prices increasing by 7 and 8%, that's going to be something that we really need to look at, and it's going to be difficult for us to handle. TRS and ERS, the teachers and employees retirement systems, we contribute a percentage each year based on the number of dollars that we pay in salaries. Those rates are based on investment rates of return. Obviously, we saw a big dip, extreme dip just at the beginning of COVID. We saw the stock market return to very high numbers, and we've seen that trend back down. So what will those investment returns be for these retirement systems, which in turn will affect the amount, the percentage that we pay on those plans? And then the health insurance, that's been the big one this year, and that's one that we've always been concerned with, but it's really hitting us now. 21.9% increase in this upcoming budget, and we're expecting at least trend going forward, so 8 to 12% per year. And as we've talked about before, our tax cap at 3.19% is not enough to even cover just the health insurance increase from this year to next year. So those are areas that we're, as we're planning through this budget, we're also looking at future budgets, and these are some areas that are a concern. Beyond the budget, that the voters will also have the opportunity to cast their ballot on a proposition for transportation. So this year, for the purchase of buses, is $1,069,045. There's 7 74-passenger buses at $131,816 each, and 1 64-passenger wheelchair bus at $146,333. And we'll use transportation reserve and fund balance to cover the cost of that. So there will be no new increase in taxes to cover those purchases. As you all are aware, we within our ballot is the proposition for Wood Library. Wood Library determines what their budget is and what the revenue they need to cover their budget. And so their proposal this year is $844,250 tax levy, or 9.5%. And you can see the increase per $1,000 of assessed value, and $2.51 for $150,000 assessed value home. Again, we're just the pass-through for that, but we have that on our ballot. And then we have 2 Board of Education seats this year, 2 5-year terms. one for Mrs. Michelle Petzik, and one for Dr. Jen Schneider. So the budget vote is Tuesday, May 17th this year between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. And they're in our traditional locations at the primary elementary school link gym and at the Cheshire Fire Hall. And that is what I have. So let me stop sharing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're shortly going to call the vote on this, but I want to open it up to questions or comments before. Okay, then I will ask for motions, please. Michelle and Amy, questions or comments one more time? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Matt. We know that, this is sort of the culmination of the board's work on this in a sense, but for you and others, the work continues in public sessions. And so I especially want to thank you for how clear and transparent the presentation and all of the work that goes into it has been. As usual, the board has had its questions answered, its concerns addressed. Your accessibility to us and your ability to explain things are really unparalleled. So thank you to you and your team for such a great job again.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's see. We have a couple of capital improvement project votes that are roll calls. So I'll call the first one first, which is the flooring state contract. I'll ask for motions, please. Milton and Amy, questions or comments? Deb, whenever you're ready, please.
Mrs. Calabrese,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Petzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Personali,
Yes.
Mr. Palomini,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Deb. And the second one is the Academy PA system upgrades. I'll ask for motions, please. Beth and Michelle, questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please, Deb.
Mrs. Calabrese,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Petzik,
Yes.
Mrs. Personali,
Yes.
Mr. Palomini,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. We have a consensus agenda and supplemental up for a vote. I'll ask for motions, please. Julianne, Milton, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And I think just one committee report, DEI, Julianne, please.
Sure. So the committee met last week with the charge, or the advisory group met with the charge of trying to delve further into how best to approach an equity audit. We would love to get a variety of types of data to help guide our work as we move forward with DEI. As you know, the initial proposal that we got didn't really fit the needs of our district for a number of reasons. And so we've gone a little bit back to the drawing board to try to look at some different ways to approach the idea of an audit, how much of it we can do ourselves with resources that are out there, how we might want to work with outside organizations for all or part of it. So the committee spent some time talking about the goals of an equity audit and then starting to look at some different models that are out there. And the committee is going to continue to research that and then come back together and discuss next steps. And I'm sure I'll be back with more of an update as we do that.
Great. Thank you. Anything else, Jamie or anyone else?
Go Tar Heels.
Well, on that note, I will ask for motions to adjourn then. Michelle and Amy, of course, all in favor. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. If you're off somewhere, have a lovely spring break.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye-bye.